burning daylight.
Howdy there, daylight burners. How the fuck's it going? Did you survive the weekend? Did you get caught up in the protests? Boy, it's been 2020 has been one for the record books. I tell you what, not to toot my own horn a little bit, but just a little bit. I'll toot my own horn. I said I called 2020 being a crazy year, you know, because 2019 was pretty fucking crazy, and I said I don't think we've seen anything yet. That being said, I didn't see any of this shit happening. Golly, been crazy year. Got a little heat this weekend for a couple of posts I made. Not too much. Actually, a lot less than I expected. And it made me feel pretty good because I've got a good listener base, well informed and independent minded listener base. So that makes me feel happy. And yeah, proud of y'all. I think. Even some of the criticism I got was very constructive, very well thought out, come from a good place. There was mostly boomers. I don't think they listen to the podcast, but they know that happens. We got right around 10,000 followers on Facebook, which is fucking insane, guys. That's wild. Appreciate you. But it's I got nowhere near that. I haven't even cracked the 1,000 follower mark on podcasts yet. So a lot more people see my posts than listen, and then that's fine. But we've got several people that post, and we got a mixed bag of stuff that comes in on the Burning Daylight Facebook page. So, you know, there's just you may have some pro-Trump stuff. You may have some not a whole lot of anti-Trump stuff, but you know, there's just there's a lot of different stuff. And with this George Floyd deal, I really thought I should put my thoughts out there, and of course, I spend way more time on social media than, or at least in the comments section, than I normally do. But I wanted to make sure that people understood what I was saying, because I am not on board with these rioters and looters. That I never once have said that. And so, I'm not going to rephrase what I said. I'm just going to expound, I guess. And then I'm going to tell you where my actual thoughts and where I actually stand on this whole certain deal. So my stance on the cops. I treat them as an individual, and if they're a good one, I'll treat them as a good one. If not, I'll call them out on bullshit. And this George Floyd deal was a bunch of bullshit. Not just the cop who executed him, but all those cops standing around watched it happen. They need to be charged with something as well. And when I was speaking about these riots and looting, I was focusing on the two places that I'd paid a little bit of attention to. One was being Minneapolis, where they started, and the other being Reno, because it's fairly close to me. And from what I had seen in Minneapolis there was the looting and the full scale riots had just kind of started happening when I recorded that podcast. I didn't pay any attention to the nationwide stuff because I just hadn't got to that yet. So and then Reno, there was a protest, but it looked to be mostly mostly nonviolent. I saw a lot of people posting about it and how much bullshit it was. But at the end of the day, all I saw was some graffiti on the Reno PD, headquarters, and a couple broken windows at City Hall. And I thought, for as large scale of a protest as it was, that's pretty acceptable damages. And especially considering they're both government buildings. Minneapolis had just started into the looting section, and I don't condone that. But the point I'm trying to make, and as I expressed on the podcast, as I expressed in the comments, and as I expressed my thoughts on the post that I shared from Mr. Colt Farrington, is this shouldn't be a surprise. I mean, the I Have a Dream speech was damn near 60 years ago. The same thing he was talking about. And this, all comes from the nonviolent protests that Martin Luther King Jr. preached. And something I subscribe to, I won't say wholeheartedly, but I do subscribe to quite a little bit. I think nonviolence in the long run is more effective, and it's the better way to go about things. That being said, that speech was almost 60 years ago. The same thing they were complaining about then, with good reason, they're complaining about today with good reason. And they, I mean the black community. And when you have something as egregious and blatant and public as this George Floyd execution, murder, you've got to expect some sort of backlash. And a lot of people say, well, those are innocent businesses that had nothing to do with it. This was an innocent man trying to feed his family and was executed. I'm not condoning any of the violence that occurred after, any of the looting, the robbing, the destruction of property. I'm just saying it's absurd that you can't expect that to happen with how the black community has been treated over the course of American history. And especially since the civil rights, leading up to the civil rights movement and up to today. Man, they've been preaching on the same thing: equal rights and police brutality. And here we are in 2020, and you have almost 9-minute video of this fucking cop kneeling on an unarmed black dude's neck as he's screaming, "I can't breathe," goes limp, has his partners there, or his other cop buddies say, "Hey, he's not moving," and still just continues to kneel on him. Like, it took something like that to get so much national attention, where it seemed like everybody was on the same page that this is fucked up. Something needs to change. And when the Minneapolis, whatever, the prosecutor or the district attorney, whoever it was that was supposed to bring charges or investigate this, drugged their feet and pussyfooted around and him-hawed and did the typical cop bullshit, where they just circle around their own regardless of how wrong they are. That's when these protests erupted and eventually turned violent. And so the stuff that I'd seen is a bunch of cop cars set on fire, the Minneapolis Police Department torched, City Hall's window smashed. And from what I had heard at that point, it was like there was a few businesses being smashed up, but for the most part, it was government buildings. And I'm all in favor of that. That is going right to the root of the issue. In this case, it was police brutality, and they went and torched the fucking police precinct. I I will not shed a tear over that. That I don't care how callous that makes me sound. They had that one coming. City Hall, same thing. You've had your entire city on lockdown for 3 months for what increasingly turns out to be a bullshit assumption on how deadly this COVID virus is. I have no sympathy for City Hall and Minneapolis getting smashed. You had that one coming. So that's where I stood with the protests. At Reno was kind of the same way. As I didn't see much damage, and I still don't know if there was any looting or anything in Reno. I didn't really follow up on that. But then I come to find out there's protests nationwide and then a bunch of looting and rioting nationwide as well. And I just start to think, because I'm pretty conspiracy minded, because I've taken that red pill a long time ago. I take another one pretty well on a daily basis on how much bullshit the government is feeding us and the media as well. And like I said on the last episode, if you thought the media was fake news beforehand, why would you believe everything you're seeing from them right now? I think most of these protests started out just like they always do, nonviolent, an organic uprising of people just really pissed off about injustices. And this one in particular, like the whole fucking country, the whole world saw that happening. They saw that guy just chilling on a black dude's neck, killing him, suffocating him. I mean, it was disgusting, and I pretty well the whole country was on board. Then you see the fires. Then you see breaking windows, trashing small businesses, and there's always going to be some of that when you have these large protests, because once everybody's on the same page, all it takes is one person to set off that powder keg, because people are pissed off, and that's why they're out there. And I saw a whole lot of memes about how there were no work boots looted in Minneapolis, and IRS, or not the IRS, the welfare office was untouched, and I saw a lot of that in the bull session too. And while it can be funny, it's low hanging fruit, and it's slightly racist, because that's a dig at the Minneapolis black community. And I'm not one of these social justice fucktards. But what you're implying is the only reason these black folks are out there protesting is because they're on welfare. Well, guess what? 40 fucking million Americans have filed for unemployment during this COVID shutdown. There's a lot of fucking people out of work. And you know why they're out of work? It's not because they don't want to go to work. It's because the government told them to stay the fuck home because you are not an essential worker. That is the root cause of this whole violence. And you know what the powers that be do? Instead of uniting us and saying, "Hey, we need to take a look at our actions and how our gross abuse of power has led to this." No, the Democrats will say, "Well, it's these racist rednecks who support the cops, and they want to become right-wing authoritarians." And the Republicans will say it's all these super left-wing liberals, libtards that just want to destroy America. And they're both sides are using the black community as a fucking pawn in the game. If you guys, and so I spent most of yesterday and today just catching up on some news. And by news, I don't, if you're still watching cable news, stop. It's all agenda driven. You're not going to catch a true story. And Now, to tell the truth, most news outlets, you're not going to catch the full story. They all have a spin, but just know that going in. One of the best guys the two best guys I listen to, and one I know he's coming from a hardcore libertarian anarcho-capitalist position, is Dave Smith on Part of the Problem. Does a great job of analyzing what's going on, and it's a unique take for folks like us living out in the sticks. He's a New York City born and raised Jewish stand-up comedian. Completely different outlook on life than what we have. But I share a lot of the same values. Like I said, he's a hardcore libertarian, freedom to the max, personal liberty, and personal responsibility. That's a lot of times gets left out of the equation when you talk about personal liberty is personal responsibility. So I pissed off a lot of boomers. So the one that really got people riled up, and I knew it would. Actually, I texted Robbie about an hour and a half after I posted it. He had a little bit of horseback accident this past weekend and might have concussed himself a little bit. So he spent a lot of time sleeping. But anyway, we were going back and forth in the Snapchat group that we have going, and Robbie wasn't really chiming in, but it was Sam and Thad and Jesse Stetson and Nick Lute. We all have this Snap group, and I reposted a Colin Kaepernick post when it said. Well, shoot, let me pull it up real quick so I can get the exact words, because I stand by it. It was an accurate statement. I don't agree with Kaepernick a lot. I don't particularly like the guy. I used to be, coming out of college, I was a pretty decent fan of his. I never took a hard stance on the taking a knee, just because I thought it was way overblown on both sides. But I understood what he was kneeling for. While a lot of people refused to hear him, he was kneeling against police brutality. So what he said was, when civility leads to death, revolting is the only logical reaction. The cries for peace will rain down, and when they do, they will land on deaf ears because your violence has brought this resistance. We have the right to fight back. Rest in power, George Floyd. So I reposted it. And I said, as much as a lot of my listeners may hate this dude, he ain't wrong. Nowhere in there did I say I agree with how anything's being handled. I said he is not wrong. Every time you see a protest from the black community about police brutality, there's always kind of the conservative side that says, well, we don't know all the facts. We don't know all the facts. Maybe this guy was resisting arrest, which is the biggest fucking joke. Anything can be resisting arrest. And apparently that's just, that gives grounds for the cops to just shoot your ass, kill you because, well, you were resisting, not doing as you were told. And then the argument's always, well, just follow the cops' orders and you won't get shot. Well, it's not the cop's job to shoot you. It's the cop's job to take you in. And if he's taking you in this case, for a $20 counterfeit $20 bill, $20 is what you killed this guy over. $20 fucking dollars. People have a right to be upset. And when it's on video like that for the world to see, and you can see this guy almost just smirking as he's kneeling on George Floyd's neck. They have a right to be upset. I in no way, shape, or form condone all the looting. Also, as I said, you've got to expect that. It's going to happen when people get in a mob like that. Shit hits the fan. It always does. So you have the National Guard called in, several different states. Trump says the military is on standby. That's a scary fucking deal. He just designated as Antifa as a terrorist organization, which I think they are. In the true definition of terrorism, using violence and terror to push forward a political agenda, that is Antifa's number one goal objective. So, are they a terrorist organization? I think so. Classifying them as a terrorist organization under U.S. law, federal law, that's a little spooky. Number one, Antifa does not have a designated set of leaders. It's much like Al Qaeda, except even Al Qaeda had bin Laden at the head. But other than that, they just had a bunch of different cells. Antifa is much like that, except there is no bin Laden. Like, each individual cell has their little hierarchy, and that's how it goes. But they're very, very organized. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest, if you go listen to Tim Pool, he's an independent journalist, a very good one, left-leaning, very pragmatic, very common sense, and very much a straight shooter. It's called the Timcast on YouTube. If that's how you listen to podcasts. If not, it's just search Tim Pool, Pool. He does a great job. Every day he's got a 2-hour where he just recaps the big stories of the day, gives an analysis, and and just reports the news. Does a good job. This guy has covered a lot of Antifa rallies. He's covered a lot of revolutions. He was in Egypt during the Arab Spring when the Egyptian people overthrew Morsi, Mohammed Morsi. I think it's Mohammed Morsi. And he was also at Berkeley. He was at Occupy Wall Street. He knows how these people, especially the far left activists like Antifa, he knows how they operate. And he's been around, not at this particular riot, but he'd been around before where they said we will go in under the cover of night, 2:00 in the morning, with a van loaded full of stuff, go to certain targets, drop off said equipment and or the van, and then leave. And that way they don't have to try to take the van in during a protest. So what they'll do is they'll drop jugs of gasoline, tear gas, pepper spray, bottled water, and bricks at certain spots where they're going to be most effective to incite a riot. And there's very good evidence that this is happening through all throughout the U.S. There's video that I saw on the Tim Pool show of a very angry black woman walking over to a car with a brick. Now, it's not what you think. The way the media would have you, you'd think. Most of the time, they're going to show you that's not the exact same, but that same scenario with a black woman and a brick walking over to a car and just bashes out the window. No, she knocks on the window. They roll it down and she says, why the fuck are you giving these to young black men? Don't you know that they can get in trouble and they live here? And then they apologized and took the brick back. Why were they handing out bricks? Another video, there's of Minneapolis protesters showing a pallet of bricks sitting on a corner across the street from the courthouse. There's no construction around. Why are they there? They were placed there strategically to hijack a peaceful protest. Coming all full circle from where I was this weekend, just to expand on my thoughts. I still stand by what I said. when you have that egregious of an act take place on camera where people can see, and it takes them that long to charge the guy with murder, you are going to have some protests and they're probably going to turn violent. I follow some very well thought out black folks on social media. One of them being Maj Toure, who is he's from the inner city Philadelphia, a gun rights advocate. Kind of I don't know if I'd call him an anarchist libertarian, but I'd say he's right along in the same vein as I am. And he had posted, said, the longer you wait to charge this guy and you have him in custody, the more people are going to protest and possibly riot. And then he said, after they had him in custody, he said, okay, as I said, the longer it takes till you have him in custody, the longer the riots last. You got him in custody. Now it's time to stop the riots. You heard that a lot from leaders in the black community. Well, the riots didn't stop. And then more and more video comes out. And they're not going to show it on the mainstream media very much. You're going to have to look on YouTube and Facebook and independent media on the internet. There's a lot of video of young, white, I'm assuming liberals, because they all are dressed like the typical Antifa dress, masks, bandanas, dressed in all black. You see pictures of these young white males, for the most part, smashing out windows and just walking away, or handing out bricks, whatever, beating the shit out of people at the same time. Just really disturbing, disgusting stuff. And the worst part of it is they're doing it in these poor black communities that have already been oppressed for so long. And now they've got the momentum of the country behind them on these protests. And these young, probably far left white, just fuckheads come in, and they take what is a peaceful protest and they just start stirring shit. And they think they're doing some good or whatever. I don't even know what the thought process is, but the people they're supposed to be helping, you know what happens next? They slap a curfew on Minneapolis. They slap a curfew on LA, all these big cities, mostly Democrat cities with large minority populations, large black communities. They slap a curfew on that black community. And then the rioting just keeps happening. All these stores and stuff get looted. And the next thing you know, that poor black community gets even poorer. And that poor black community that already has bad relationship with the cops gets an even worse relationship with the cops because they come in to crack heads and put down these riots. They're gonna go bust some skulls and just crack down on them. And they're doing this to a community that's already pissed off. How does that help anything? So all you Antifa fucks that claim to be for racial equality and anti-racism, anti-fascism, whatever the fuck they say, all you're doing is just further cementing the notion that all white people are bad in the brains of these inner city black people that have been kicked in the dirt already enough, and you go add on top of that. Fuck all you guys. If you get tear gassed and you get a billy club across the face, you had it coming. Once again, I feel no sympathy for that. Now you've got the very real possibility of martial law coming down. If this shit doesn't kind of die down, that's what's going to happen. Trump is going to win in a landslide because all this shit, especially the worst of it, is happening in Democratic controlled states and cities. And yeah, do you think they're gonna vote for Joe Biden when your business that you worked your whole life to build up gets the storefront smashed and it gets torched and a bunch of young white pricks come beat the fuck out of you? Yeah, I think they're probably voting for Trump. So congratulations, Democratic Party. You sealed another 4 years of Donald Trump. And you know what? He's earned it. By and large, he has done okay from a liberty standpoint on the COVID deal. Like grading on a curve against everybody, all the governors and shit. He has done pretty minimal damage compared to what these governors have done. At every step of the way, he was optimistic, and he said, let's get everything open back up. And you know what? More and more every day, the more reports. You don't hear reports on COVID anymore because of these riots, which is real convenient. We'll get to that too. But every time you hear a report, you see the fatality rate goes down. You see more and more cases are confirmed positives pop up because they started doing more testing. But you haven't seen the same spike in deaths. So what we're seeing now is, and I heard the statistic the other day and I didn't believe it. I had to look it up for myself, and it's true. If you look at the CDC, the numbers that they're giving to you, the average age of anybody who has died of COVID-19 is older than the average age of when a normal person dies. So the vast majority of the people that are dying are very, very old and probably very, very sick. But yeah, we shut down the whole country, shut down the economy for that. And 3 months, basically, people have been locked inside, 40 million people out of work. And you're sitting on a powder keg and you've got these Antifa fucks taking the right opportunity to just set it all off. And what could have been a real moment and call for change is squandered because of these far left-wing just fuckheads. And I guess to put a bow on what my thoughts on this whole thing are is, like I said, I will not apologize for any of the comments I made on the previous episode. I stand by him 100%. I think Colin Kaepernick was right with that quote. And I think Colt Farrington summed it up perfectly. Like, us folks out here in the rural areas, we don't know what's going on there. There's no way we can know. And we don't even realize how much we don't know. So I reserve a lot of judgment just because of that. I don't know, and neither do you. What I do know is a lot of these cities have some of the most stringent gun control laws in the country. When somebody rolls up on the south side of Chicago wanting to smash buildings and stuff, most of those folks are there just trying to get by in their shitty existence because it's a shitty part of the world. They don't have the ability to defend themselves. After reading that post from Colt Farrington, I haven't watched those documentaries yet. I will. But I looked and I did a search. I don't even think I did a search. I was on social media and one of the hashtags I follow is libertarian memes. And I noticed a couple different posts that had, along with the hashtag libertarian memes, they had hashtag rooftop Koreans. And I didn't know what that meant. Well, that stems back to the 1992 Rodney King riots, where there's a part of LA they call Koreatown. A bunch of Korean owned businesses were targeted by these riots. And a lot of these Korean folks said, no, fuck you. And they were perched up on the top of their buildings with AKs and whatever else. And they were defending their property. There were still some stores that got smashed and looted. But you know what? They put up a fight. And now that whole, the rooftop Koreans has got twisted by some in the media to so it's racist or whatever. Who knows? You've got an actual case of racial injustice on your hands, and you take an outdated, or not outdated, but an old reference that had nothing to do with race, but people defending their property and claim it's racist. That's fucking sick. But anyhow, so what it was is there was a bunch of these Korean business owners up on their roofs with AKs and whatever else they could defend themselves with. And they would fire warning shots. And as much racism as they claimed this was, there was not a single case of a black person being gunned down by a Korean during these things. But there was several Korean businesses that were saved because of it. And my solution, and I guess statement on this is like, I don't know if we've ever seen a better example in our lifetimes, at least my lifetime. If you're under 35, in our lifetimes, I've never seen a better case for why you should be armed. There's talk of these looters and rioters coming out to the rural areas. Good fucking luck with that. Those folks are in for a rude awakening. And on the off chance that I do have some super left wing activists that are ready to just sow dissent and tear shit up, come on out to the sticks, and you'll realize just how much shit we blow up on a daily basis for fun. And now you've got a bunch of people who really don't like you, who are really well armed and know how to shoot. Yeah, you're in for a rude awakening if you come out to the rural areas. But that being said, they should have been in for a rude awakening in the inner cities. All those small business owners should have been armed, and everybody in that community should have been armed, and they should have been able to just stand by those business owners with a gun in hand and said, "Come try it, motherfuckers." You saw that I know Sam sent me some clips of downtown Coeur d'Alene, where there are people just lining the sidewalks with ARs, because Spokane, which is in Washington, just over the border, very left-wing city, there was talk of those rioters and protesters coming over to Coeur d'Alene, and they said, you know what, this is still Idaho, motherfuckers, so come try to smash some shit up. And as far as I know, nothing has happened. It's a funny thing when you have a chance of being shot, the likelihood of you breaking into somewhere decreases exponentially. So kudos to everybody who, and I've heard reports of like the police in Dallas have just lost complete control over downtown Dallas. And there were reports of militia groups coming in to stand guard over businesses just to protect people's livelihoods. And that is awesome. That is what the Second Amendment was meant for. Also, a tyrannical government, but in this case, it doesn't have to be the government. Tyranny by a mob. And when people are armed, they can say, fuck you. You're not coming on my property. And you know what? If they try, you take 2 to the chest and see how many more want some. So the overall thing is like, I support the protests 100%. That man, George Floyd, his death should be protested for a long time until there is actual real change in the way law enforcement practices the art of policing, until they respect human rights. They respect the constitutional rights that we have and our liberties, every one of them on the force. Until you get to that point where there is real change made, I 100% back these protests. Now, all these white fucktards that are hijacking it, for the most part, white. I'm sure there's some black folks and Hispanic, whatever. But by and large, what I've seen is probably pretty affluent, rich, white liberals putting on a ski mask and playing rioter. Fuck all those guys. And there's videos of people in these inner city communities standing up to them. And we need to see more of that. And those of you who are on the police force, like, make sure I know in the heat of conflict, the heat of battle, if you will, it's hard to tell who's from who, but make sure if you're cracking down on people, you're cracking down on the people that are doing the damage. The people who are out there expressing their anger and outrage at the injustice in the world, and they're doing it peacefully, let them be. I know it's hard to tell the difference sometimes, but that's what you get paid for. You get paid to keep the peace. You don't get paid to crack skulls. So, there's, and for those of you who are calling for more cop intervention, that doesn't solve anything. They're protesting against police brutality right now. And when you come and you crack down even harder, that just leaves a worse relationship with that community. So be careful out there and stay strapped. Like, that's the best thing you can do, is arm yourself and be ready to defend your property. So I think I'm going to end it on that. I didn't do the ad read earlier, but this episode is brought to you by Loma Livestock, owned and operated by George Raftopoulos there in Loma, Colorado. They got a bi-weekly sale every other Friday, not this Friday, next Friday they'll have one, starting at 10 o'clock with cows and singles, followed up by the feeders at 11. You can watch that sale online at dbauction.com if you can't make it over to the sale barn itself. Just click on the Loma Livestock tab and you can bid right there as well. Give them a holler, 970-858-9988 if you got any questions, or check them out online at lomalivestock.com. And also Nick Allen Lute with his braided rawhide Hondas. Check him out at Nick Allen Lute on Facebook, at Will Cowboy for Food. These rawhide Hondas are pretty awesome. Tougher than hell. Add some speed and weight to your rope. Just really good product. Takes a lot of time to braid those. He said it takes about 12 foot of rawhide to make something about yay big. It's pretty cool. A lot of craftsmanship, and I like them a lot. I use them every day. So check him out and let him know you heard about it on Burning Daylight. He'll cut you a little discount. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I appreciate it, and we'll catch you back here tomorrow on Facebook Live if you're around. If not, you'll hear it on Friday sometime. We'll do the bull session. So don't miss that. And y'all stay safe out there and move your ass for burning daylight.